Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is Wednesday night, and we are live talking away the taboo. You know what? Tonight is a really special episode. I am going to be bringing on Chaya Hott, who is really a tremendous person. She is warm, she is lovely, she is kind, she has been through a tremendous amount in her life. She's coming on right now. And honored that she chose us. I was supposed to have a baby to share her story with. And here she is. Hi, Chaya.
Hi, everybody.
And she's very nervous. So I'm telling all of you that right now. And I know you're all going to be gentle and you're all going to be kind because, as we know, when people tell their story publicly in this kind of way for the first time, it's hard. I remember, Chaya, you and I never talked about this, but I remember the first time that I actually got up to a room of about 150 people to tell my story. I was like shaking like a leaf and couldn't eat or sleep for days beforehand. So I this is a lot, and I'm very grateful that you chose us to talk with. So say hi to everybody and introduce yourself, please.
So, hi, everybody. Hi to all the people I know and to all the people I don't know, but you will know me very shortly. You can hear me all right, yeah?
Yes, you're perfect.
Okay, excellent. So, I guess first I should talk about how we got to know each other a little bit,
Definitely.
how I found you. Yeah. So, almost 2 years ago, I had a stillbirth, and I'm going to share my whole story, not just my stillbirth, but before, during, and after. And yeah, my husband just joined. Um, okay, so it was actually my husband that found your page.
Really?
It was, yeah, it was 4 weeks postpartum. And he said to me, "Hey, these are all the organizations out there. I think you need some help and go check it out." And that's where we started. So I've been in touch with Amy pretty much since then. Been joining her support groups, and she has seen me through my lows and through my highs. And yeah, that's Amy is an amazing person. I love you, Amy. Um,
Okay,
right?
we're not talking about me. So, okay, Hyatt. So take us back. So take us back to the beginning. You got married, and
Nope, my story begins way before I got married. So,
go ahead.
when I was 15 years old, a teenager, I randomly got a blood clot in my spleen, and I was hospitalized for 2 weeks. They didn't know what was going on with me. Fast forward 20 plus years, that was a total mystery. No doctor could ever figure out with me. I've been cleared, and it remains a mystery and a fluke until today. It's not genetic. They couldn't find anything, but I say this because it added to my trauma during my next pregnancies and through my loss. So I had this clot, remained a fluke. A few years later, I got married, 21, got pregnant pretty soon after, and I went to the doctor. He called my hematologist in front of my eyes, and he said, "Nope, no concern. She's good to go." So I went through the pregnancy, no issues. Um, but the pregnancy itself was no issue. But when I gave birth, I'm a petite person, and my pelvis separated too far, and I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk after I gave birth. I had to sleep in a chair for weeks and lots of physical therapy. And then when that settled down, I went to see a high risk doctor because I said, "There's no way I'm going through that again. That was way too painful, and I can't do that again." So even before I got pregnant, I went to see this doctor, and we discussed she would induce me at 38 weeks when I got pregnant again. This way I would have a little bit of a smaller baby, and hopefully, because I went, a week and a half overdue with my first daughter. So this would be a total of 3.5 to 4 weeks. This way I wouldn't have, a bigger baby, and I, hopefully would avoid that issue. So, of course, I mentioned my medical history to her as well, just doing my due diligence. And she decided to take matters into her own hands. She did a whole run of blood work on me, did not send me to a hematologist, did not talk to a hematologist. And I didn't hear from her. That was it. And then when I got pregnant was the next time I went back to the doctor, this MFM doctor. And she says to me, well, actually, I have concerns about your blood work. They're inconclusive. I want to do a whole new run of blood work on you again. And my husband and I were so skeptical because, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, either I have an issue or I don't. Why only some blood work you're going to redo and not the other? So,
Right.
but we were young, we were naive, we were in our low 20s, and we thought the doctor is high risk. She knows what she's doing. We don't. So we put all our trust in her. And she came back saying that I had a protein S deficiency, a blood clotting disorder. And she put me on Lovenox, which is very common in this community,
Blood thinner.
on
Yep.
a blood thinning medication. And she made me take it throughout the duration of the pregnancy. I took the medication, and towards the end of the pregnancy, I kept complaining of severe back pain. And I kept being told, it's normal, it's normal. Every woman complains of back pain, right? So labor delivery was uneventful. Everything went well. They induced me at 38 weeks as planned. But a few weeks after I gave birth, I broke my back. So they were telling me to go to physical therapy. I went to physical therapy, and in physical therapy, I crushed my back. I had two vertebrae that got moved out of place and crushed. And from there, of course, I was in terrible pain. What was going on? Instead of getting better after labor, after birth, the weeks were going on and I was having more and more pain. And now all of a sudden, I'm like spasming, my back is killing. And so I ended up going from doctor to doctor. And it took actually a year of a lot of research and a lot of testing. They did a bone biopsy on me. They took like literally a piece of bone from my hip, they drilled in. They did all kinds of testing. I see all kinds of doctors. They diagnosed me with osteoporosis, and I had to go through a year of treatment to repair some of my bone as best as possible, because osteoporosis is not a condition that is reversible. So it's like when you have it, it's lifetime. That's it. Like I'm doomed. So we were like trying to get answers. The doctors were looking. I remember the doctor's look on his face when he saw those x-rays. He said to me, were you in a car accident? Like, what happened that you had such a traumatic injury to your spine? And I said, no, I was 24 years old at the time. And I don't know. I didn't know what hit me. That's the truth. But like 1 month turned into 1 year, and 1 year turned into 10 years. And during those 10 years, I was completely stable. I never to this day found an underlying reason why I had this osteoporosis, other than those injections I took during the pregnancy, which in the fine print, on the label, like, it says like may cause, and I was one of the fine print, I don't even want to call it victims. So, but I didn't have my answers until recently, actually. We just went with this like unknown. What happened? Usually, like when someone has something like this, there's an underlying issue. Is it a thyroid issue? Is it cancer? Is it diabetes? Like, what could it be? Is there like a tumor? Like, what is causing this? And they never found anything to this day. So after being stable for 10 years, the doctor said to me, listen, you've been stable. We never found an underlying reason. And I'm going to allow you to try for one more baby. I know you really wanted to have another child. So she gave me a year of injections and prepared me to boost my body and my bones to go through another pregnancy, because every woman on this planet that goes through pregnancy loses bone. She loses bone, especially also when she nurses. So being that I didn't have enough for myself, she wanted to boost my bones to prepare my body to go through pregnancy. And the condition was that I wouldn't be able to nurse. I said, okay, I can handle that. I'll take a baby without the nursing. So from there, I asked her, I said, can you tell me like an OB doctor I should be using, like considering my case? And she said, no, I can't tell anyone for you to use. So I was on my own, literally on my own. And I started researching and I started looking and I started calling. And my primary care physician recommended me to a specific doctor. He said he had good experience with her and she works in the same hospital as my endocrinologist. So this way they could work hand in hand with each other, would be a great match. So I went to her, but I don't know, I didn't like her. It didn't feel right to me. I didn't feel like she was on the ball. I don't know, she wasn't for me. So I went ahead and I went to go find another doctor. Whoa! And this doctor says to me, he was insinuating I should abort the baby. He says, he says to me, I'm sorry, but a clot at age 15 is no sign of a healthy woman. He says to my face. He was
Wow.
so anti-Semitic. He was Jewish, but he said the horriblest things. And I left that office sobbing. I was like 8 weeks at the time. And obviously that doctor wasn't for me. The first doctor I had went to for a consultation before I was pregnant said to me, you really need to go get your medical history like cleared out over here because that's a big issue here with the whole clotting disorder. So when I saw her, she said she was going to speak to her high risk team to see, where I fall. Do I need to see high risk or not? But by the time she got back to me a few weeks later, I was pregnant. So here I am again, pregnant again. Go take your blood work again when you're pregnant. So I asked her, do you have a recommendation of a hematologist I should see? She said, no, you could go to your own. So I went on my own, again, on my own. And the doctor says to me, whoa, your whole story doesn't make sense. It's been 20 years. You haven't never had another clot. That doctor that put you on the Lovenox should have never put you on birth control pills because somebody with a clotting disorder cannot take birth control pills because those pills cause clotting. So not only you can't diagnose somebody when they're pregnant, she also put you on those pills. I don't see any red flags over here, but I'm going to do a very full run on you. But again, you're pregnant, so the numbers are not going to be 100% accurate. And I really recommend after the pregnancy that you do a whole nother run again. Okay, so I take the blood work results with me. And when I went back to the first doctor, after that second doctor was awful to me, I brought the blood work results with me. And she says, I was concerned. I said, here they are. I went to see a hematologist. This is what he gave me. This is what he said. Here are the results. And there was no concern. There was no question. She didn't call the doctor, nothing. She said, okay, let's go get you a due date. And from there, I saw her originally in August. But by the time I got to December, every single appointment I would go to, she would say, I know I told you that I was going to contact your doctor, but by next appointment, I'll contact your doctor. And I said, what the hell? I'm halfway through the pregnancy already. What are you waiting for? And she also wanted to take x-rays during the pregnancy, but the whole purpose of, because they wanted to see which vertebrae I had fractured so that if I need an epidural, they shouldn't touch those vertebrae. I understand, but all you need is a quick phone call or a quick email to the doctor that you're in the same circle as. All you need to do is find out which vertebrae I fractured. You don't need to take another x-ray. Well, my anatomy scan was the very last appointment that I saw her. I had asked her some questions and she's like, I don't know, and I was like, I have the right to ask questions and I have the right to get answers. Just everything about her wasn't sitting well with me. And I said, I'm out of here. And that was my last appointment with her. And I transferred over to, we did, again, it took me like a good month. We were calling, doing research, asking around, getting feedback, getting reviews, looking online. And I settled with a midwife that had that she worked very closely back to back with a doctor. And this original first doctor that I had left told me that I wasn't high risk. So I was like, if I'm not high risk, why do I need to go to a high risk doctor? I'll go to the midwife with a very good doctor and I'll be good to go. I never even got to see that doctor. And basically, they had me fill out release forms to get my medical records. And every appointment I would go, they would say to me, we don't have your records yet. We don't have your records yet. Every time I would see them, they say, we don't have your records. I said, this is so strange. I filled them out multiple times. Who's not doing their job here?
Right.
So I did my glucose test. I did everything they told me. And then 2 weeks before I lost the baby, I lost the baby at 34 weeks. 2 weeks before I lost the baby, I was actually in a little car accident. And of course, that shook the heck out of me. And before I even called the police or anything, the first thing I did was call the midwife. I said, I was just in a little fender bender accident. What do I need to do? Do I need to go to the hospital to get and checked out? And she said, no, as long as you're not cramping, you're not bleeding, that's the first thing that's going to happen if you're in an accident and you're not cramping, you're not bleeding, you feel the baby moving, then you're fine. You don't need to go get checked out. So it was Erev Shabbos, it was Friday. I didn't have extra time if I didn't need to go. And again, you put your trust in doctors, they tell you what to do. So she told me no, so I didn't go. And then I went home and I was nervous as anything. So I ate a whole box of hamantash and it was like Purim. It was like Erev Purim. So then Purim happened, Shushan Purim, whatever. And I was very nervous. I was keeping a very close monitor on the baby's movements. And a week later, the movements were going down and I was sure. And I waited. First I drank juice, then I called the doctor, the midwife, and the midwife says to me, drink juice. I said, I already did. I promise you it didn't make a difference. I'm anxious. And she says to me, listen, you're 33 weeks. It's normal for the movements to go down. Anyways, you have an appointment on Tuesday. We'll see you then. Okay. So I was like, whatever. And my husband's like, you did the same thing by the other girls when they were born, whatever. So I went ahead and waited and hoped and trusted. And by the time I got there Tuesday, I came in there and the first words out of my mouth were, I am very worried. People are telling me that I'm measuring big, that I look big. Could you tell me what's going on? So she measures me and she says, yeah, you're like 2-3 weeks ahead. And I said to her, whoa, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for my baby? And she says, it just means that we're going to monitor the fluid, every week. So I need you to go get a sonogram so we can measure the fluid and see what's going on. I said, how urgent is this? She says, just go sometime in the next week, week and a half, and then come here after your sonogram. I said, but I'm really
I just
worried.
have to say,
Can't
hold on.
Yeah.
Can I just say just for 1 second? There
Yeah.
are pieces of this story that I did not know. And I like some of these things, and I'm horrified as a doctor about so many of the things that you're sharing. I can't not react. Okay, I'm sorry. I just had to interrupt. Keep going.
So I say to her, but I'm really worried. Can't I have a sonogram right here, right now? And her response to me is, no, we're not going to see much on this sonogram anyways. I want you to go get, a more detailed sonogram. So the following day was Wednesday. And by that last appointment also, they were still missing my blood work records. I gave it to them in their face. I brought it with me. And they did not make copies. I don't know what they did with it. I don't know what the secretary does there, but I brought the blood work with me in my hands. I gave it to the secretary, the blonde-haired secretary, to make copies. She gave it back to me, and yet they never received my blood work records. So, and nothing else for that matter either. So the following day, Wednesday, I was like, this is ridiculous. I am going to take care of this, and I'm going to get to the records. Made my appointment Wednesday for Thursday morning, first thing. Woo! But by Thursday morning, it was too late. I came to the office first thing in the morning. My appointment was like 9:30 in the morning. I came there. She says, why are you here? I tell her why. She puts the probe on me and says, wait right here. And she goes to get the doctor. The doctor comes in and says, I'm going to ask you questions. How many weeks are you? Are there any illnesses in the family? Did you do your glucose test? And I said to him, you're getting me scared. I didn't even have time to think because I ran out of the shower and I knew something was off, but I wasn't expecting that. And he says to me, well, the baby's not alive. And of course I panicked, and my first reaction actually was, Hashem said no. God said no, because I waited for so many years. My youngest was already 11, and I waited so many years for this, and it was a boy, and I knew basically the whole time. And when the baby passed, it was like, I thought Hashem said yeah, but Hashem said no, and I was just like in a shock. And I had to call my husband, and the first thing I said to him after I said the baby wasn't alive anymore was, don't worry, we're going to try again. But it wasn't so simple, because after that, there was, when I went to go get, I went right away to go to get induced, and I went to give birth right away the following morning. And was it a blood clot? And I could not handle those words. I was literally trembling. How could it be? How could it be? This whole thing is such a mystery. I went to a hematologist. He told me there was no concern. How could this be? And maybe it was a cord insertion. And maybe your factor VIII was elevated. And they said such bullshit out of their mouths. I called a time and I said, I need help. Help me. And they took all my files from the midwife, and they took over, and I never heard from my midwife again. She never followed up with me. In fact,
Oh
I
my God.
called the actual midwife that delivered me 3 months later to complain about a bunch of things. And she said to me, Chaya, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I no longer work there for those reasons. I left because there was just too much happening in that place. I was basically dropped like a hot potato. She was supposed to get my the pathology from the hospital, and 2 weeks before she said she would get it for me at my postpartum checkup, she didn't have it. And when we saw that she was just playing games with us and she wasn't serious and she didn't care, we were like, we're going to fill out the release forms from the hospital. We're going to get it ourselves because I need this. I need to know what happened in order to pursue a future pregnancy. And she was like, what I needed for me next was I needed to try for a new pregnancy because this is just what I needed to cope. It was too much. It was too much. It was too much. So I had to wait. They did not let me try again right away. And I didn't know if they would ever let me try again because I had osteoporosis and I needed to wait a few months to take a bone density. I needed to wait 3 whole months until they could check out my blood work to see what happened. Maybe this will give me answers. And I went to a gastro doctor because they were like, maybe you have all these gastro issues. They started making up things. They had all these theories. Maybe I had a late onset of gestational diabetes. Something happened to the cord that we for sure were able to see. I saw it with my own eyes. But nothing. To this day, there were no real answers. Nobody could pinpoint anything. I saw 3 MFM doctors that checked into my case and nothing. So this was like a
Wow.
fluke out of the blue. But after 3 months, I was given the green light to try again. The doctor actually said to me, it was a time doctor that they referred me to. He said, I never saw such a crystal clean workup on a patient. Like there were literally no answers. They billed my insurance like $10,000 for all this blood work. They did the biggest workup you could think of and no answers, nothing. So he gave me the green light and I was like, yes, this is it. We're going to try again. This is how we're going to cope. This is how we're going to move forward. And that's it.
And I'm just
Mm,
interrupting you for one
yeah.
second.
Mm,
I'm allowing Chaya, just to tell everyone, I'm allowing Chaya to tell her story from sort of start to finish, so to speak. And then we're going to go back and we're going to talk about the emotions and the grief and all of that, because there is a lot to discuss there. But I wanted her to tell her full story first. So I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead, Chaya.
okay. Anyways, so I got pregnant right away again on first try and I had a miscarriage. A few weeks later, I started bleeding and I lost the pregnancy very quick. I didn't even make it to the doctor yet. I had actually gone to Florida and nobody would see me, nobody would touch me because I went to contaminated Florida, COVID. So not only I was like struggling so much, I was like deemed like, oh no, no, we can't see you. So I was going through a miscarriage, but I couldn't even go to the doctor's office. So I came off the plane, mind you, it was to my nephew's breast. This all happened while I went to my nephew's breast. So I came off the plane and I went to the emergency room and they confirmed over there that I'm probably having a miscarriage because I had pregnancy levels, but there's nothing inside anymore. I mean, it came out. I know it came out.
Right.
So, yeah, most people that go through that know when it passes, right? So
We know.
I wanted to speak to the MFM doctor that I had worked with and did the pre-consultation. But guess what? I wasn't allowed to talk to him. I had to work with a different doctor that just drop in the bucket. I'm just like a person in the factory. And I was like, excuse me, if a doctor that I am hiring as a doctor is not available for me while I am going through a miscarriage, then he's not for me. And so I went to go look for a second doctor. And I didn't either like the second doctor. And my husband was like, listen, these are the top doctors that A-Time and all these organizations are sending you to. Like, you don't need to look any further. I said, actually, I'm the one that's being pregnant. I'm the one that needs to like the doctor. So I'm going to continue looking until I find a doctor that I like. And you don't
By
have
the
to come
way,
with me. I'll take my.
this is really important information for all of you in terms of your own advocacy. It doesn't matter how many people recommend a doctor. You're the one that's the patient, and you're the one that has to be comfortable. You did exactly the right thing for you. And that was what
Yeah,
was most
I,
important.
I, I was like, I'm never ever doing this again myself. I was alone at the loss. I was alone through the whole thing, dropped in a bucket. No one, go to your own hematologist, go to your own everything. I was doing it on my own. And I was like, I can never do that again alone. And so I was going to find a doctor that was going to hold me by the hand. And I was going to keep searching until I found the right doctor. But I was already pregnant again, a second time around. The second doctor I had gone to, the only good thing he did for me was he told me I didn't have to wait. So my miscarriage date became my last date to my next pregnancy. And he told me to take a baby aspirin just as a precaution, even though all my blood work came back completely crystal clear. And I found this new doctor. First of all, he had did a whole research on me even before I came to that first appointment. They called me ahead of time. They asked me questions. They made me send all my records. By the time I sat down in that chair for the first time, he knew everything about me. And that was huge for me.
Wow.
And I took my mother with me, and my mother sat in the waiting room, and it was hot COVID. You were not allowed to have guests. And I was like, I just couldn't do this alone. It wasn't a choice. I couldn't. So my mother sat in the waiting room, and the nurse says to me, do you have any guests here with you? And I was like, oh crap, I'm getting in trouble here. Like I have a guest with me. And I was like, actually, my mother's here, but I couldn't come alone. And she says, please invite your mother inside. You've been through so much. You deserve to have your mother here at your side.
Oh my
During
goodness.
COVID, nobody else was allowed to have anyone, but I had, after that, my husband always came with me, but I had always somebody with me through the thick of COVID. And that was what I needed. And they were so kind. They were so sensitive. They knew exactly what to say to me. He's like, you're very low risk, but if you want to stay here, you could stay here with me. And I said, high risk, I just want to put out there, doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It's the level of care that you want for yourself.
Right,
It's not like
right.
I need to use a high risk doctor because something's wrong with me. I want that close attention. I want that someone to hold my hand and to show me that I'm a somebody, not that I'm a nobody and you don't matter. And they were
Right. I mean, look,
extremely sensitive
I
to
will
me.
qualify that there definitely
Yeah.
are medical conditions that are beyond what a regular OB can care for. And so then a high risk doctor is absolutely necessary. But there is that gray area of,
Yeah.
if you advocate enough and you want a different level of care and they have room on their schedule, they can take you on. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I went with them and I had a sonogram every single appointment from day one. This is what my needs were, and I paid for it. But it was amazing to see the baby grow. And they knew the very first thing to always tell me was the baby has a heart rate, everything looks good. And actually, at my very, very last appointment, the fluids were very low. I was 37 and a half weeks. And even the way the doctor told me was so smart and so sensitive. He says to me, I have good news for you today. You're going to have the baby today. The fluids are very low. And of course, I started crying and I was whatever, but like, I had an amazing experience with them. I know that that type of care and level of care is unique. Like I want, like they're like, if you ever need to come in, come in. Don't even like let us know you're coming, but like, don't worry, just come whenever you feel the need. Like one time I called them, I was concerned. Somebody told me my stomach had dropped and I was in my 5th month and I was like, I can't be losing this baby. I can't be having, a preterm labor. And I called them and they're like, you were here yesterday. Your stomach didn't drop. Like, could you please not listen to what other people say? People think they know. People think like people make up stupid things and they just give like other people anxiety. But they were just like amazing. They dealt with my anxiety. They held space for me. They were very gentle with me. And the entire pregnancy was actually very uneventful. I actually only went one extra time, besides for the time that they told me, because I really felt like that, God forbid, if the pregnancy would end up down south, I was still in good hands this time around. Like they would hold me from A to Z. and it wouldn't be like I was, dropped like a hot potato, doing this alone. Even at my postpartum checkup, the midwife asked me if I was breastfeeding. I was like, yeah, I'm breastfeeding a dead baby. Yeah. hmm Like, could you please look at the questionnaire before you
Yeah.
ask me that? And then they
Yeah.
gave me this questionnaire of a depression questionnaire at my postpartum visit. I read the second question. Are you eating? Are you crying? Are you sleeping? And I said, I can't answer these questions. Now I'll just be like, I'm sorry, please take these.
Hold on.
So
She's
there was,
coming back. Hold on.
yeah, that's my story in a
I'm just
nutshell. I
making
did
sure.
have a rainbow baby, thank God. And he's 9 months old now, actually. Not actually. We take every second, every minute. Um, we're so grateful. And after everything we've been through, it's not by chance. It's not just a baby that we popped out. It's my miracle baby. And I definitely do want to discuss, if we have time, yeah,
Yes, we have
about,
time. Hold on. So I'm
yeah,
gonna first of all just thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that because I think as we move into this second part of talking about the emotions and talking about the grief and talking about the things that people said, it's as you and I have discussed many times, the framework of everything that you went through in terms of the trauma and the medical pieces and how you weren't believed and how you felt gaslighted by different physicians and you weren't cared for and you weren't, so many of the different pieces helped, and I'm using the word help loosely, it helped give you that trauma response when things went wrong. And so and the grief and all of the emotions are bits and pieces of it. So I
yeah,
I thought it was really important for you to share all of this so that people could understand where you were coming from. Just one question before we move into it, and somebody asked, are you
yeah.
comfortable sharing the name of your doctor, your last doctor, the one who you felt
You
wonderful
know
with?
what's so crazy? I will. I think his name is Dr. Rosenberg, and he's out of Monroe. That was another thing. I was like, I have to travel to Manhattan how many times? Like, this is so stressful. That's counterproductive to being relaxed and having a good pregnancy.
Victor
So,
Rosenberg. Victor
yeah,
Rosenberg.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So the pregnancy was like a bubble to me. I kind of like disconnected from it. That was a way where I survived. So like some friends are like reminding me now, like you were pregnant this, last year this time. And I was like, oh, I forgot. Thanks for reminding me.
Right.
Like it was just like the before and the after and like a sharp, like dividing line between the two
Totally. Totally.
because it was awful.
Totally. Okay, Chaya. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's now move backwards. Talk
Yeah.
to us about the immediate aftermath, and in that, like, those first 4 weeks, and then the weeks and months afterwards, as you were like dealing with the grief, when your husband said you need help. Here is a list of people. Here is a list of organizations, and then like even the decision to try to get pregnant again. Talk to us a little bit about those pieces.
Okay, so obviously the very first initial reaction is shock. You're like going through this like shock period of like what just happened to me? Is this really real? I gave birth Friday morning, and actually by Friday night it hit me. I was to just get up and go light Shabbos candles and had to move on with life or move forward with life. The grief was so strong. My kids had to hold me up. It was like not funny. Um, in the early days, I used to have a lot of heart palpitations, like very, very, very intense pain. I used to say they should just buried me with my baby. It was too much to bear. So now when people like say like they lose a child and they want to commit suicide, I understand it because losing a child is too intense. It's too much. It's too painful. Um, but I do want to say thank you to all my friends and family that have literally held me up physically, emotionally, mentally, because really without support, there is no way to survive. Like people sometimes say like, oh, you're so strong. I'm not strong without you people. Look, my loss happened the first week of COVID, so there was nobody. I couldn't see no one. I couldn't hug no one. I couldn't, there was no cleaning help, no cleaning help, no food, no dinners, zero, zero, zero. It was like a double hit. Like, not only you lost the baby, now you're alone, like all the way alone. But I do want to say that everyone had plenty of time for me because everything was shut closed on the phone, that is. So like it had its perks, it had its pros, and it had its cons. Um, my
Talk to
brother from
me. Yeah.
Florida, yeah.
Talk to me about some of the things that were most helpful and things that people did or things that people said that were most helpful and that you felt like that you really resonated with. And then talk to me about the things that really like rubbed you the wrong way and you just like still bother you.
So I don't want to say still because I really learned a lot and grew a lot, and my perspective on things is different than what it used to be. I do want to say that there's nobody for sure on this, live today that would say something that wants to hurt somebody. It's coming from a good place, and sometimes we people just don't know what the other person wants, and we're trying. I don't even know what I want, so how could other people know what I want? And it's different for every person. Well, what person finds helpful, the other person absolutely finds very not helpful. So it's hard to navigate that. But I have a friend that told me, like, you need to advocate for yourself and you need to communicate and let people know what your needs are because nobody is going to know otherwise. So I had someone that used to call me like every day. And after 3 months, she stopped calling me and it hurt me so badly. And after 3 days, I called her and I said, I still need you to call me every single day. She's like, oh, I thought I was hurting you. I was like, no, I don't care if you're hurting me. I still need you. So like that was so hard for me to do, but that was something that I tell myself today that all the support that I have, all the friends that I have, all the support groups that I join, everything that I have is not because it fell into my lap. It's because I acquired it. I created this for myself because I learned that people don't know. So I have to navigate that for myself. Um, like I was about to say that my brother in Florida, like 2 weeks after my loss, he said, come with me outside. I'm going to take you by the hand. I said, I can't go outside. I can't. It's too much for me. And he said, I'm holding you by the hand. Take, take my hand and we're going outside together. And I did. So like, even though he was so far, he held my hand, like physically, emotionally, mentally, everything. So like I said, I would still be hiding inside, you know, um, it's hard to say in a nutshell, really. Like, what was helpful for me was like when a friend showed up at my door with lunch for 3 days in a row. Like, I didn't eat it, but like the gesture, because I couldn't eat those days, but the gesture mattered. I remember every single chocolate bar that came to my door, every single candy heart shape that was dropped off at my door. I remember everything, every single detail. You don't forget these kind gestures. What's difficult for me are when people avoid me, when people don't say anything. In fact, just yesterday, I'm now going around saying, oh, I had a loss. And this is someone I spoke to. I was, going to hire her. And again, I don't blame anyone. People just don't know. They don't know what you want. They don't know what you don't want. They don't know how to approach it. They're afraid. They don't want to hurt you. But the avoidance hurts much more. And it's better to just say, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry, than nothing at all. I'm still dealing with that now, almost 2 years later, where people know about it, but just never said anything to me. So I have this, like, the way I feel is like I have this deep, dark pain that needs to come out. And by talking about it, it helps. And unfortunately, I have to be the one to break the ice because people are just, I find that society is uncomfortable with uncomfortable feelings.
Yes.
So people don't know what to say. And so I find myself now like, I need to break the ice because I need to show you that it's okay. I'm not a stranger. I'm not the elephant in the room. I'm not like, just because this happened to me doesn't make me different than you. In fact, I have learned that every single woman has a story. It doesn't have to be infertility related per se, but I feel like in this world, we all have a story. We're all women. And in fact, if 1 in 4 pregnancies ends up in a loss, that means your next door neighbor and your upstairs neighbor and your
Correct.
back door neighbor and everyone is going through this. And actually, when I talk about it, 99.9% of the time, people do say to me, oh, my mother, my sister, you know, like to show me that like you're not alone. So, yeah.
How do you this idea, I just want to like delve into it a little bit more. This
Mhm.
idea that people don't know what to say, and so therefore they say nothing. And that actually is one of the most incredibly painful pieces, when people ignore it or they don't acknowledge it. And I want to just, as someone who sits and holds the pain for people, I want to just reiterate exactly what Chaya said and say, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be, tied up in a bow with pink ribbons and like coming with, big gifts of dinner or teddy bears or bars of chocolate. It just has to be a simple, hey, I heard what happened and I'm so sorry and I feel terrible for you, and just know that I'm thinking about you. It is just that simple. And that's it. And that's enough that the person will know that you acknowledged it. And that's enough. It doesn't have to be complicated. Do you agree with me?
Yeah. Yeah. I also like I want the world to know and I want people to know, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and probably a lot of other mothers that have been through even miscarriage. I mean, miscarriage is more silent because like the whole world didn't know that you were pregnant per se. Um, but this isn't something that happened to me in the past. I live with it every single day. You know, sometimes people think like, oh, if there's going to be a trigger, it's because I got reminded. I have not forgotten, not a single day. My heart aches every single day. It does get better with time, not because time heals. It gets better with time because time allows you and gives you the time to do the grief work. Like if I were to take a sleeping pill 2 years ago and wake up 2 years later, I'd be the same mess I was 2 years ago.
Totally. It's a great,
So
it's a great analogy. It's a great way of thinking about it. Totally.
yeah, so there's also I want to share about the stillbirth itself. I feel like it's a very misunderstood area in life. Just yesterday, someone said to me like, you didn't really know your baby. Let me tell you something. I knew what my baby liked to eat. I knew what my baby didn't like. I knew my baby's movements. I felt him. I gave birth to him. I held him. I know what he looks like. I know my baby just like any other mother that gives birth to a newborn baby. I know my baby. He has a name. He had a kosher kfura. He had a brit. I know my baby. My baby was real. My baby was not a pumpkin. I lost a baby. I didn't lose a pregnancy. I lost a baby. Maybe inside you want to call him a fetus, but when I gave birth to him, he was a baby just like any other baby. He was a newborn baby. I feel sometimes that the term stillbirth is underestimates what we mothers go through. Especially like some people think that like you're going to have a rainbow baby and everything is going to be fixed. Doesn't work that way. Another baby is not a replacement for the one I lost. Another baby is exactly that. Another baby, a different baby. I can hold space for every single one of my children, including the one that is no longer here with me. And I'm talking for myself as well as from others that I've heard from, that when they have another baby, sometimes the trauma is even worse afterward because it only accentuates what you lost. And that's exactly what happened for me. When I would get triggered, people would say comments to me like, God sent you a perfect replacement. God did you a favor. I would get horrible comments like this, and my back would start to spasm. The fractures in my back, the spasms that I used to have 12 years ago started coming back. All the pain, all my injuries that I ever had came back. So the trauma was living in my body now, whereas before it was more emotional. And I was told, yeah, it's the hormonal changes, it's hormones. Please don't blame my grief on hormones because 9 months later, my grief is not hormones. When my hormones are mostly subsided, my grief has nothing to do with hormones. And it feels very isolating, very misunderstood, and very hurtful when people blame what I'm going through on my hormones. It has nothing to do. I'm grieving just like somebody grieved their mother or their father. Well, no, their child. Um, it's my child. It's nothing else.
Right.
And my children also, we live with it. We have the fear of loss every single day. And my children were big. My children went through this. They also live with it. It's not something that happened to us in the past. We don't forget about it. It's part of my every cell in my body. And what I like to describe it as is it's a new life. I'm learning to live this new life. It's my new normal. And it's like a toddler that's learning to walk. You know, in the beginning, they get up, they fall. In the beginning, it's harder. And as they learn to walk, they get stronger and stronger until they're walking this path, you know, without blinking. And that's the way it's going to be for us. The first 2 years of grief are not so great. So I'm just, you know, and grief has no timeline actually. So like, you know, in 20 years from now, if I'm crying, please don't think that there's something wrong with me. I'm grieving. I will forever grieve this baby. As long as I live, I will always remember this baby. He's a part of my family. He's a part of my everyday life. We talk about him. And you know what? We've changed as people because of him. So, you know, my therapist says that he will blossom through me. And he has added so much to my life, even with his short time. And there is one thing I want to share actually. When I was pregnant the second time around, I went to Arizona on vacation, and my husband on the phone said to me, you know, this baby's bracha. I just got some clients today. And I was like, nonsense. He said the same thing to me last time around, and look what happened. And he said, no, the baby was with you for 8 months, and the baby brought bracha to the family for 8 months.
Wow.
And that was the most validating piece I ever heard,
Wow.
because it wasn't something that never panned out to be. It existed on this world for 8 months. He was real. He was tangible, not on some other planet, right here in my belly, in my bedroom, in my house, in my car. He was with me. I carried him. I felt him. I held him. And he's still a part of my life. You know, when somebody's mother passes away, after their mother passes away, or anyone, you don't say, well, your mother never existed because now she's no longer here. And people have permission to still talk about their parents all the time. Well, guess what? I also want permission to talk about my child all the time. Just because he's not here anymore and because society is not comfortable with it doesn't mean that I'm not comfortable with it. It's hard, it's painful, but I'm learning to live this new life.
Chaya, what do you say to people when I know that you get calls now from people who have had losses, who have had stillbirths? What do you tell them? How do you tell them that things are going to be? I mean, you've shared pieces of it, but how do you, in the immediacy, what do you tell them to give them some source of comfort and chizuk?
So actually, I have not thought about that because I've only been connected to my friends that went through the same time as me. And I kind of just like dropped off the planet after that. Like I have my support system and that's where I keep it at. And I'm going to say the same thing actually that my cousin, I had 3 cousins that had stillbirths before me. And one of my sisters called one of my cousins and said, could you please tell her, like, give her some chizuk, give her some support, tell her that things are going to get better, like, let her know she'll be okay. And my cousin's response was, I'm so sorry, but the pain never goes away. And she said, it gets better with time, but the pain never goes away. And I heard this like analogy that in the beginning, in the very early days, it feels like this gigantic heavy boulder like on your shoulders. And then with time, as the grief settles and you start to feel a little bit better, that boulder becomes a little bit smaller and smaller until it's like a little rock, a little stone, but it's always going to be there. You're always going to feel it. And really take as much time as you need, because like I said, there is no timeline. And I do feel that a person's background, where they're coming from, perhaps even their childhood or even the relationship in their marriage, there could be so many factors as to what happens surrounding their loss. So it's very nice for people to say like, oh, you have another baby, or be positive, be grateful, you know, focus on what, you know, on the children you already have. First of all, I want to say when I lost my baby, I felt childless. It's a fact, it's a feeling, it's part of the grief process. I felt lonely. Loneliness is not it's not like, oh, I have nobody next to me. It's just a feeling of grief is when you just feel lonely. Your baby's not here with you anymore. You have this void, you have this emptiness, and um, you know, it's complex. You know, I say take my whole life and condense it into into 1 hour. It's a little bit difficult to do that, um, but I really what I want to say to the world actually is a few things. I said number one, this whole thing about the taboo doesn't matter if your loss was a baby, or if your loss is a divorce, or if your loss is you're grieving the loss of a healthy child because you have a sick child. You know, you're grieving the thought of what this baby was going to be, and is not, you know, or mental illness, or the loss of another family member. Um, there could be so, you know, medical illness. I'm faced with medical illness also. There could be so many different challenges that people deal with and face with. And what I want to say is that there's no comparing. Pain is pain is pain, as I see on your page all the time. That it's not the Olympics here. You know, I don't need to tell somebody, you know, oh, stillbirth is worse than having a newborn baby die. Is it worse? I don't want to say if it's worse or not, because you know what? Someone that didn't go through a stillbirth doesn't have the added factor of giving birth to death. They don't have that kind of a trauma that we have. So can you compare that to anything? You can't compare that to anything. It's its own thing. So I feel like each challenge that a person goes through in this world, it's their own thing. And there's no need to say, well, that's so much worse, you know? And I really feel like it's time that we put away the shame, we put away the guilt, we put away the blame, we
Yes.
put away the
Yes.
isolation,
Yes.
because I feel like this taboo or this awkwardness, you know, somebody was telling me about her uncle had a stroke. And when she would walk with him on the street, people would literally cross the street or turn around because they didn't know, and he didn't even die. They didn't even know what to say. And she's like, it's bad enough I had to lose my husband like this because she lost his healthy being.
Right.
I also had to lose my friends, you know? So I feel that no matter what challenge a person is going through, I feel like we women need each other. We need to hold each other's hands. We need to hold each other's hearts. And doesn't matter what you're going through, because pain is pain is pain. And we can support each other. And, you know, even with medical illness, is it my fault? You know, did I do something wrong? I tell people you couldn't exactly stick your hand into your uterus and control what was going on inside,
Correct.
right? So,
Correct.
like, how is this my fault? You know, but like as mothers, we feel responsible for our children. So we feel responsible, like, to protect our children. And what didn't I do during that pregnancy for the protection of my child? How many doctors I went to see and how many phone calls I made and what I didn't do, right? But yet I suffered with the guilt for just till recently, you know. So, and the same thing goes to medical illness and any situation a person's in. It's like unfortunate, but it's not my fault. It's not our fault. And sometimes I feel like there's a lot of stigma, and we need to do away with that. And we need to come out in the open. We're in 2022, so
Correct.
I feel like we should just leave the past behind us and just come out and be open. And everybody should be doing these talks. So yeah,
Look, it starts with one person. It starts with
you.
one. No, but it starts with one person who is brave enough in their own circle, in their own Dalit Amos, to speak, to share, to talk, to educate, to say, hey, like, I need something different, to advocate, to don't don't do this instead. It takes each person within themselves. It takes one person to share, one person to educate. And if everyone in the right time, when they're ready, if they're ready, for every person that does that, it makes the world a better place, because then more people know, it becomes more normalized, it becomes more accepted for people to talk about it, and grief becomes something that we live with all around us instead of being this taboo topic.
Right. I do want to say, if I have a couple minutes in regards to grief, I feel like grief is a little bit misunderstood also in society. People think, move on, let go, um, why are you still struggling? Think positive. But grief is actually a natural part of life. The same way we need to eat and we need to sleep, we need to grieve. And it's a very natural part of life. And sometimes people think like it's unhealthy that you're crying, not you, me, then
Yeah.
I'm crying. But actually, grief is a very normal and a very healthy part of life. And by grieving, it's healthy. And by not grieving, it will explode in other ways.
Yes.
And that part is not healthy. So I
Yeah.
do want to put that out there, that please don't feel bad that I'm crying all the time or that I'm struggling. I'm human and I'm normal and I'm healthy. And what else did I want to say about grief and depression? Grief and depression overlap each other very much. It was actually my husband after 4 weeks that said to me, you're depressed. I said, okay, call me depressed. It's fine. But you know what? I'm very grateful to him because he found me all the support, and I'm going to talk about them right now. One is I was supposed to have a baby, which is on Instagram and Facebook, right? But what I love so much about this page is that it doesn't, she brings all the different supports together. She'll talk about every other type of organization in this community related to infertility and loss, and she brings it all together. So this is like a one-stop shop, I believe. And also Amy has support groups once a month for different, well, it's a total of 5, but
I'm
for
not
different,
paying her. She's just saying this.
I'm just saying it because I used to come and it was, the support groups were a lifeline for me. I would not have survived without it.
But
Nakama Comfort,
right,
yeah.
I was just going to say, but you also, which I think is incredible, and we encourage people to do this, you also sought out support from other organizations as well. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So there's Nakama Comfort as well. She has support groups every other week. And you know what? As much as COVID stinks so badly, everything went online just right in time for me. So everything was on Zoom. I didn't have to travel anywhere. I didn't have to go anywhere. And I had support groups. I joined every single one for an entire year until I had my baby. I missed one, actually, one, because I said, let me see how I do without it. But it was intense for me regardless. I was like, it's intense like this, it's intense like that. I'm just coming. It was a safe place for me to share my pain, my triggers, people that were able to relate to me, understand what I'm going through. And Riva is amazing and her team is amazing. She offers so much. So definitely, I used to think that like, oh my gosh, I can't reach out. It's so humbling. It's so embarrassing. No, no, this is what these people do full time and they're here for us. Every single, Riva has been through her own loss. She lost a newborn baby over 30 years ago. So she knows what it's like firsthand to be going through loss and grieving. And she holds space for everybody, no judgment. And then there's Kinefayim, also a Jewish organization. And you know what? Like, someone just called me from your organization yesterday to like give me a questionnaire, that like interview thing. And she asked me like how each organization, like, if they overlap each other. And I said, absolutely not. What I got from each organization was different from the other. There was no overlapping territory. So in the beginning days, I used to think like, oh my gosh, this is competition here. How could I call one and then the other? And I was told the more support I seek for myself, the better off I'll be later on. So I did it all. I just connected myself to every single one. And then I would contact my friends on the side, and I'm still friends with them till today. So like all these friends that I have, we get together, we go to each other's bar mitzvahs, bas mitzvahs, you name it. We become like really, really close friends. And then there's also A-Time, which is also very popular. A-Time deals mostly with infertility, but they also have a loss division.
Yes.
They actually have a group me support group like texting, which is busy all day long. I don't follow it anymore because I just get broken by new losses. I used to be so naive. I used to think I'm the only one that had a loss and I'm the only one that's going to have a loss. Like after this, there's no more losses. And then more people would come and I'd be like, I can't handle this. This is too much, you know?
Right.
And there's one more thing actually I want to say. Really, I could talk from, sometimes when I talk with my friend, we forget to hang up the phone. It's so late because you could just talk forever. Because really, honestly, all this is too much to put into words. It's much bigger than words. But I wanted to talk about actually the faith that, you know, when the doctor told me that the baby wasn't alive anymore, the first words out of my mouth was, right, Hashem said no. So like I had that faith, but then at the same time, I felt like my faith was questioned. If I believe this is from Hashem and I have so much pain, undescribable pain, excruciating pain, then I was angry. I was very upset. How could you do this to me? It's like, I've been through enough before I went through this. Like, was that not enough? Now, please don't tell me everything has a reason. Please don't tell me everything is for the best. Please don't tell me God has his ways. I know that. But that underestimates, that invalidates my pain. All I want to hear is, I'm so sorry for your loss. My pain needs a lot of love and attention. It doesn't need lessons on faith.
Yes.
And actually, I listen to a lot of faith, stories. And I actually, Monday mornings, I join this, it's actually called a prayer class, but we don't pray. It's actually the process of prayer, of the gratitude and the recognition and God, the oneness, and then our wishes, like we want, similar to Shemoneh Esrei. But she speaks over there. She says that gratitude and pain are two different things. You can have gratitude and you can have pain. And in fact, the only way to have gratitude is if you first validate and recognize that pain that the other person has. So when people think like, oh, move on or give yourself permission to let go, it's like that's not a contradiction. I can have pain and I can have joy. I can juggle both. That's not a contradiction. And sometimes people say to me now, but you have a baby. And so, but my baby doesn't take away from what happened to me.
Correct.
My baby isn't a replacement. My baby isn't a contradiction. In fact, when he was born, we had more grief than joy. A lot of grief. It was hard to even, not I want to say appreciate, but it was very difficult. It was, especially my two pregnancies were very similar. Both boys, both due in May, both born on Friday morning. They were the same, almost the same size. They looked the same. Down to my husband's cavity falling out was the same. Everything was this. Everything was like spooky, hair raising, scary. That there were so similarities. So like when he was born, it was like, it was hard. It was very, very hard. But I do want to say also that I received a blessing. There was a rabbi, a big rabbi from Israel, Rav Kaladetsky, that came into my office, actually the week I got pregnant. And my workmates were like, go ask for a blessing. And I was like, who is this man? I never heard of him before. But I went and I asked for a blessing and it gave me a blessing and I got pregnant that week. And the entire time when I would have anxiety, I would think about my blessing. I have a blessing. I have a blessing. I have a blessing. And also, I actually would turn my anxiety into prayer. I had this special prayer for pregnancy. And in fact, the beginning of the pregnancy started out just like the miscarriage. I thought I was losing it again. And thank God I didn't. But I just would like open up my prayer and I would just say it again and again. And if it took me 10 times, I didn't care. I just said it again. And I would walk every morning and I would play special songs about faith. This is why I'm talking about it. Because I got through my pregnancy with faith. Listening, I resonate a lot with music. And it's so interesting. Different songs sometimes come into my life at different times. But like, I'll sing the song until I own it. Because song is emotional. Song is therapeutic. And these songs have a lot of strength in them. So I would just like take songs and listen to the songs that I resonate with. And actually last week was a happy song. And I was like, that's it. I'm ready to be happy. But yeah, so the pregnancy after the loss was horrible, but I survived through my friends and through the prayer and through the blessing that I received and an incredible doctor. Because just the fact that I knew I was in good hands gave me a bit of ease,
Absolutely. Okay,
Anyways,
Chaya, here's my question.
yeah.
Are you comfortable if people reach out to you now, if they want to chat with you, if they want to get your feedback? Are you comfortable with people reaching out to you?
Absolutely. In fact, I left my job when my baby was born. I worked there for 16 years. And the reason I left was because I took the year off to heal. I needed with everything I've been through, I just needed undivided, unlimited time to heal. And I'm doing therapy a few times a week. And of course, I'm taking care of my baby. I waited so long, I wanted no one else to take care of him. But I'm available. I'm here. I'm not running anywhere. If anyone wants to reach out to me with any questions, I'm just an average woman. I'm not, some rock star. I just like, like all of you.
You I don't like, it's funny. I don't like when people call those of us who have been through something. I don't like when people call us strong. I don't like when people call us rock stars. I don't like when people say, "Oh my gosh, you're just so amazing," because we were given this, and
Yeah.
we've done the work, and we're just, all of us are just doing our best. That's the reality. We're just doing our best. And I'm just, you in your own way, because you were able to share so openly with us today, you are a rock star. But
Thank you.
but it's because of all of the work that you've done, and that you want now to take a piece of this, and you want to be able to give back. And so I'm incredibly grateful to you. And I really thank you. Thank you for opening yourself up. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing so many details of this, the entire story from start to finish, and also the emotions, because it's important for people to hear what it's really like, what it really is on a day-to-day basis, and how this does not go away even after a number of months, even after a number of years, even after you have a rainbow baby. It doesn't go away. It sits with you. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Amy. Thank you, everybody. But I do want to say, like I said in the beginning, people say that we're strong. No, we don't feel strong when we're going through it. But it's every single one of you that are here tonight that makes us strong. So I'm going to say I'm strong, but not alone.
Yes, because we have community, because
Yeah.
community makes us strong. When we are together, when we don't hide, when it's not secrets, when it's not filled with shame and stigma, when we can come together and talk together about these struggles, then we all together are strong, all of us. Okay?
And I do see some people ask some questions. So definitely, like, you could refer them to me. I'm happy to talk about it.
Right. I,
Like I
I
said,
didn't,
I have nothing to hide.
yeah, I wanted you to be able to talk. There are some more specific questions. People can reach out to you directly.
Yeah, for
Okay?
sure.
Okay?
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. And good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.